Methods of work of the Security Council, you can see that they keep improving. Now we have this strange contraption here, which I hope is not going to fall on me in the course of the few minutes I spent here. But anyway, I think overall we're satisfied with the product, with the resolution which was adopted today by the Security Council. We had a few long and sometimes heated hours yesterday in consultation room trying to bring the resolution to a condition where it could be acceptable to the Russian Federation, and I think that by and large we have succeeded. I hope that when reporting on the content of the resolution, you will read the text of the resolution very carefully, because unfortunately some of my colleagues in their statements in the Security Council and in their remarks at the stakeout chose to misquote some of the very important provisions of the resolution. If you look at them very carefully, you'll see that they all apply to all parties in Syria, not just to the Syrian government, but to all parties in Syria. It applies to the need to respect and implement all elements of the Kofi Annan plan. It applies to the implementation of the resolution, as the Security Council is going to look at the implementation of the resolution in order to determine possible further steps. So we do believe that it is a balanced product, and that should be read very carefully by all the parties in Syria. And the next step, in our view, is not just to observe and reinforce the cessation of violence, but also to move on with the political process, to start the political dialogue. So this, at this point, is something which unfortunately is missing as far as we know. However, we are encouraged that we understand that the special envoy is conducting contacts in order to help that happen, and we hope that all members of the international community are going to do the same thing, and Russia is very actively involved in that, as you know, talking not only with the government but also with various representatives of Syrian opposition. Incidentally, speaking about the political process, I was surprised to hear what my UK colleague had to say about it, about Kofi Annan's plan for his further steps. I think nobody should try to dictate to Mr. Annan what his proposals need to be. And of course, there is nothing about appointing anybody for political process from the Syrian government in Kofi Annan's plan. What Mr. Annan did from the outset, he asked the Syrian government to appoint an interlocutor for him, for himself, for the special envoy, to work out on the plan on deploying the monitors. And the Syrian government appointed Foreign Minister Mualem, whom Mr. Annan has been dealing with, along with his meetings with President Assad. So this is where it stands. So we should not second-guess Mr. Annan, as we shouldn't have tried to second-guess the mandate of the mission, which needs to be worked out with the Syrian government by the Secretary General, by the Secretariat, and presented to the Security Council. That was part of our difficulty yesterday as we were discussing this resolution, because there were a number of proposals which the sponsors, the co-sponsors, put on the table, which in our view exceeded, well, first of all, the need for the advance party, which was supposed to be a brief and concise and to-the-point resolution from in the first place, and in some ways exceeded even the imaginable requirements of the mission to observe cessation of hostilities and implementation of other elements of the Kofi Annan plan. So we are now at this point. It is very hard to be optimistic or pessimistic. I think we need to tread very carefully, and the main thing, we need to feel great responsibility for what is going on. There is a window of opportunity, and we need to try to open this window as wide as possible, and keep building on this fragile progress which Mr. Annan has been able to achieve so far.
Do you think that the financing of the opposition and militarization of the conflict further by neighboring countries is one of the appropriate matters that the Council could reconsider if the plan of Annan doesn't work? Because one of the measures mentioned in the resolution says that the Council will take action when appropriate.
Well, you know, of course, let me just say that as far as Russia is concerned, of course we believe that this is the wrong thing to do. And there are serious questions when, you know, we are asking in Security Council resolution for all parties to stop violence, and at the same time we hear that various countries are going to finance the fighters. I mean, if you pay the fighters, they're never going to stop fighting, because this is what they're paid for. So this bringing in weapons to Syria, and we know that that has been happening, is of course very detrimental. And the position of Mr. Annan is that militarization of the conflict is extremely dangerous and certainly not in line with his plan. I apologize for sort of speaking on behalf of Mr. Annan in a way, but this is something which he made it very clear to us, to all members of the Council from the outset of his effort. So doing something which leads to further militarization of the conflict would certainly be contrary to his plan and his efforts.
So will you what are the significant changes between the text you rejected yesterday and the text you adopted, you accepted today? Because I'm struggling to find significant changes between the two texts, the two drafts that were presented to you.
Yes, and you were successful in that? No, not really, not really. Okay, yeah. Well, diplomats sometimes are more picky, so we're looking at things with a magnifying glass. But first of all the references, or many of the references to the opposition in terms of implementation of Kofi Annan plan, in terms of stopping violence, in terms of abuses of human rights, they were not there in the original plan. All the emphasis, all the references to the opposition were added in the course of those lengthy discussions. Then there was language with regard to the mission of the advance party, which in our way went well beyond the requirements, and in some cases was simply not implementable as a practical matter. And incidentally, we were quite surprised by what we saw happening and what we saw the co-sponsor doing in many ways, because the day before they introduced the draft resolution, we had a video conference with Mr. Gaino, and we agreed on a number of very important things. First of all, I think, Matthew, you referred to me when you asked this question of Ambassador Rice, but it was Ambassador Rice who said, as President of the Council, very prudently, it's going to be Chapter 6 resolution, so we need to have agreement by the Syrian government. And then this is the other thing, let me see, the agreement by the end. And for the mission, for the mandate of the mission, we need to have a report of the Secretariat. Two very important and accurate and proper things. And then, in fact, it was my colleague, Ambassador Lyle Grant, who said, and it needs to be a short, specific resolution for the advance party. And it was supported by Mr. Annan, who said, yes, you do it very quickly, and then you'll have the time, a few days, to prepare the mandate for the full-fledged mission. But when the draft was presented the next day, after agreement on those points, we see that the approach was completely different. That, in fact, there was an effort in a way to impose the mandate on the Security Council and on the mission before we get recommendations from the Secretariat and before we have acceptance of that from the Syrian government. So we found ourselves in a very difficult position, and I appreciate the fact, in fact, that the Syrian government is sort of prepared to live with that and continue talking with representatives of Mr. Annan technical team in order to flesh out the mandate, and we hope that the full-fledged mandate of the mission is going to be done properly. But now I think we were able to live with that because we outlined the areas of need for the mission to operate under its mandate properly quite carefully, and sort of leaving room for fleshing out the exact modalities of implementation if both the Syrian government and sort of the Secretariat feel the need to flesh them further out.
Mr. Ambassador, what countries the peace observers are going to be drawn from?
I don't know exactly. I know that in the advance party there is supposed to be one Russian officer who is being transferred from the Golan Heights.
Well, there's some issues with this technical team of general mood in terms of there was a reference to emerging differences, or maybe to him leaving Damascus too early. What's Russia's understanding of this, of the communications between the Kofi Annan team and Syria? And I wanted to ask you this the other day. There's been a discussion of invoking NATO Article 5 for an incident that took place, I think, April 9th along the Turkish border.
Russia is not yet a NATO member, so I can't.
I wanted to know, do you think that that's helpful to the process?
Not yet.
Or
no,
not?
I don't want. I think there was a response from NATO on that, so I don't want to get into. I don't want to get into this. This I think is a disturbing signal, because we believe that if you take an important responsibility, you need to carry it through. And the monitoring mission, the arrangements for the implementation of Kofi Annan proposal, it's a very important thing. So you need to show perseverance, you need to show courage, you need to show professionalism. We don't want to see a situation when monitors, as we unfortunately have seen before, when monitors move in only to be pulled out. So you have the impression that the purpose was not to do the job, but to pull out, to make a political point. I hope it's not going to happen on this particular occasion, but we did have a situation where the advanced technical team was negotiating in Damascus, and they were doing well, and I think they were sort of nearing the end of their efforts. And then on the 10th of April, both the foreign minister of Syria and his first deputy, and the first deputy was the person, if I'm not mistaken, specifically who was negotiating with the advanced team, they were going to Moscow for 1 day for negotiations, discussions with our foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. And as they were leaving, we were told, they asked the advanced team, technical team, to stay because they're going to return later in the evening, and they're going to resume and hopefully complete those discussions. But then when they returned in the evening of the same day, they were surprised to know that they went back to Geneva. We had a conference call with Mr. Guyano in the Security Council, so he told us that they were there to report to Mr. Annan, and then they will be prepared to return, even though, frankly, they didn't see much room, I mean, in Kofi Annan team to negotiate, because they said that they stated all the requirements. So, but still, there is a need to complete a process. You are negotiating with the sovereign government in order to deploy a rather serious monitoring mission there. But well, reporting to your bosses is fine, but then why don't you come back and complete the job? And then the most surprising thing happened, I think, yesterday, when a Russian diplomat showed up in Mr. Annan's office and asked, what about General Mood? When is he going to come back? And we were essentially told that that his return, if I quote correctly, which probably is not very correctly, but still very close to the original, his return should not be anticipated, because he is in Oslo, and so he is not going to return. So this is a very strange indication. If you take up the job of preparing the mission of the monitors in a country in terms of crisis, you're supposed to finish your job. And well, I understand there may be various circumstances, but I think the duty should call first. I hope there is some explanation to this, but this is an unpleasant situation and not a very encouraging signal of the seriousness of some of the participants in the process in treating the situation in a way which would indeed bring about more normalcy and settling the various problems associated in this particular case with the deployment of the monitoring mission.
Mr. Ambassador, just to clarify, now that General Mood is not coming back, or
well, there are other people. There are other people. Yes, we were told that.
Where does it stand?
We were told that some people will be there, but we hope they will be there, and because there is a need to finalize those discussions with. No, now with the advanced party. With the advanced party, I think we have a situation where they can go, and we hope that they can go as quickly as possible. And this is very important for Russia. I mean, from the outset, what we have been saying is that we need objective information. That's why we were very encouraged when the Arab League sent their monitors. We were upset when they pulled out their monitors. Before that, we were encouraged that there was a report which we found was more objective than many other reports, formal and informal, we had seen on the situation in Syria. We were discouraged that that report was not really manifested in official statements which were made by Arab League officials, including in the chamber of the Security Council, and were very upset and critical when they chose to pull them out only when the positive impact of their presence could be felt on the ground. So now we hope that technical representatives of Mr. Annan are going to be back. They will finalize the arrangements for the overall mission, but the advanced party can move in very quickly. And again, objective information from observers and from journalists. And that's why, incidentally, also, Russia has been advocating and arguing with the Syrian government for months now that they should allow access of journalists, international journalists, not just Russian journalists, because I think from the reports of some of your colleagues, I mean, we have learned a lot, which we couldn't see on the front page of the major newspapers in many countries every day. So we count on the objectivity of the monitors and the objectivity of the media. Thank you very much.